Today I'm talking about water being turned to wine, a miracle. So stay tuned for the teaching. Today I'm talking about water being turned to wine. You might have trouble convincing someone that if you're drinking wine, that it used to be water today, because you know what? That is just simply something that it happened. It's recorded in the scriptures with Jesus, but you know what? It's just something I don't normally see. A miracle that I don't think I've ever heard of a testimony of the actual testimony of water turned into wine today. But the fact is this, it did happen with Jesus, and there was a purpose for it. And of course, within their culture, wine was acceptable for them within their culture. But in John chapter 2, starting verse 1, it says this: on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and the disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they had ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour is not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 waterpots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Jesus said to them, "Fill the waterpots with water," and they filled them up to the brim. In verse 8 it says, "And he said to them, Draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine. When the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine unto now." This is the beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed on him. One of the first things I like to bring out here, talking about the fact that the wine, the good wine, and keeping the good to the end, is what the man said, because you see, it was his position that he was in, the master of the feast. And the fact is, he tasted wine that I believe was some of the best wine he ever tasted. He immediately, it had such a, look, if the wine would just been, "Hey, that's really nice," he may not have gone to the groom. But no, he immediately connected with the groom in this situation, because you kept the best for last. I believe that wine, well, let me just say it this way: God doesn't give second best. God gave us Jesus. It doesn't get better than Jesus. That is a quality gift. I mean, the gift of his son. Boy, if we don't understand the fullness of the gift God's given through Jesus Christ, then you need a revelation of that within your heart, because God is a quality giver. When it comes to the promises of God, God doesn't give second best. He is a good giver. He gives quality gifts, because God is love. And in this situation, the water turned into wine, I believe it was the best wine you would have ever tasted. The quality would have been exceptional. And I believe that's the reason that the governor of the feast went to the groom and communicated with him, because it was the best wine. It had such a profound effect upon him. But in the process of the manifestation, one of the things we see in verse 4 is that Jesus has formed a communication with his mother. "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me?" In John chapter 2, verse 4, it says this, and part of that scripture says, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me?" It said there, just like we find here. And he said this. He said, when he's talking about concern, he's talking about the fact that, look, my time hasn't come. It's not my problem, is basically what he was saying. And when he said woman, it wasn't, it's still a polite form of communication. He's not being derogatory, talking down to his mother. I know in today's culture, if you say woman, that can sound impersonal. But no, when you look at it from the original language, it was like saying madam, but it was his mother. But you see, Jesus separated himself some from his mother in that situation, because you see, now he's in his calling. He's about doing his Father's work. And he's basically saying, look, my hour hasn't come. It's not my issue. But the mother's response with faith, boy, it moved Jesus. And Jesus' mother, it's possible that the scripture doesn't record it, but it's possible that she saw miracles with Jesus growing up, because you see, she knew something. She said, whatever he says to do, do it. I want to tell you something. It's beneficial today in your relationship with the Lord. It's a benefit to hear his voice. John 10:27 says, my sheep know my voice. John chapter 16, verse 13 says this, and the Spirit shows what is true and will come and guide you into all full truth. The Spirit doesn't speak of his own. He will tell you only what he has heard from me, speaking of Jesus, and he will let you know what is going to happen. The Spirit, in verse 14 says, will bring glory to me by taking my message and telling it to you. Everything the Father has is mine. This is why I've said that the Spirit takes my message and tells it to you. In other words, it is a benefit for you to learn to listen to the voice of Jesus by the Spirit of God and to be obedient. Do what he says. You'll get his results if you do what he says.